the only experience that students can be getting of their instructor's presence is just the text experience. And that can be really great to be able to send emails really quickly, but adding that video element is really a big step in giving the students the experience of you as a person. You know, in the online world, it can be really easy to forget that we're actually talking with real people and interacting with real people. And especially for students who are taking an online class, a lot of people don't like to take online classes because in the face-to-face class, they get to engage with the person, see their face, and know that there's a real person there behind them. It's easy to kind of lose that idea when you're in an online course. And so if you're an instructor and you can create a video that shows students who you are, even just doing things like posting news announcements, that's a really great way to just keep the students engaged with you and let them know that there's a real person behind them in the course. And the only other thing I'll say about that too is that obviously at CCC Online, a lot of the course design is done ahead of time. So when you're getting your course, it's essentially ready to go, it's pre-made. And so when we're talking about creating videos here, really one of the big places that you're going to be doing that is in the news announcements that you're creating. So that's kind of the primary place that we're thinking about. If you are an SME and you're working on one of our course designs, then you can definitely take this and apply it to creating content for a course that you're designing. So rather than creating lectures that are just text-based or maybe linking out to other videos, you could also be creating lectures using these skills to create some video lectures for students. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into it. And I just want to bring up my Q&A panel here on the side so I can make sure that I don't miss any questions from you folks before we begin. Okay, here we go. So this is the process that we're going to look at today. And this is really kind of the process for creating any piece of multimedia content, any type of video. The first step in that process is going to be capturing. So we're going to look at how to capture the screen on your computer specifically, and how to actually create that content. We're going to be capturing the video from your screen, and we're also going to be capturing audio with the tool that we're looking at today. The second one is editing. We're going to look at some basic ways to edit today. And editing is really the process where you take that initial piece that you've created and you kind of clean it up, you trim it up, you take out anything you don't want, and you polish it before you get it ready to go. The third step is then captioning it. So adding the closed captioning or open captioning, whichever format you choose to use, onto your videos so that they are accessible. And then the fourth step is going to be hosting it. So once you've created, polished, and captioned your video, you need to have it live somewhere before you're able to share it. This is an important thing because, as you'll see in the presentation today, we're not going to be sharing, or excuse me, we're not going to be hosting our video in Desire2Learn. And we'll talk about why a little bit later. And then the fifth step is actually sharing that. So since we've found a place to host the video, then we actually want to be sharing the link so that people can click on the link and view the video. So the first step we're looking at is the capturing process. And I wanted to just kind of put a list up here of some of the tools that you can use to capture your screen and audio. Because while we're just looking at one specific tool today, all of the skills that we're talking about can easily be transferred to any of these other pieces of software that you can use to capture. So the first one at the top here is the one that we're using today, Screencast-O-Matic. And there's a few reasons why we're going to be using this in the webinar today. And the main one is that all the tools that we're using in the webinar today are tools that are free that you can just use online completely. So they don't require you to download any software to your computer, and they don't require you to pay anything. So that is the for all part of the title of our presentation in creating accessible screen capture for all. means everybody can do it. You don't have to pay anything. You can do it all online without downloading anything to your computer. So these other tools here, Camtasia Studio, Jing, Snagit, and Cam Studio, those are all just other options that you have if you decide that you want to download something to your computer that might have some more functionality, or if you want to pay some more money for something like Camtasia Studio, it will cost you a couple $100 for something like that. But you do get a lot more functionality out of those tools. So just so you all know, these are all some tools that you can use to capture, but like I said, the skills we're using today will transfer really to any of these. So we're going to move over to Screencast-O-Matic here to start our process of capturing. So Screencast-O-Matic, like I mentioned, is completely web-based and completely free. So your first step there is going to be going to screencast-o-matic.com, screencast-o-matic.com. So for our purposes today, we're going to, like I mentioned, be recording something to post in a news announcement in D2L. So our first step is starting our recording here. So on Screencast-O-Matic's homepage, I'm going to go to Start Recording. Now it's going to take me to this screen here. Now they have a new version of their screen recorder. This is something that they've just come out with probably in the last 6 months or so, but you'll notice that it's in beta. So I would not recommend using this. I've tried to use this new version, and it's pretty buggy, which is really what beta means. If you don't know what beta means, it means it's just not officially released yet. It's still kind of in the testing period, so you're kind of using it at your own risk. So I would suggest to you to use the old recorder version 1.0. That's kind of the tried and true tested one. So you can click on that, and it'll come to this screen where it'll start up your recorder. Now, I'm going to get a message here about my Java, and because my Java is not updated, I can't use that version. So what I'm actually going to be doing is using the downloaded version of Screencast-O-Matic. Now, I hope that this isn't confusing to you, because I did just mention that you don't have to download anything to use this software. It's completely web-based, and that is still true. But they have a version that you're able to download and install for free, as you can see right here, so that you can use it offline if you ever don't have a connection to the internet. But the really important thing to remember here about this is that just what I showed you, going to their first screen there, clicking on that Start Recording, and then clicking on that Use Version 1.0, if I didn't get this error just because of my Java situation, this recording screen that we see right here would pop up, and it would look exactly the same, except it would just be using Java on your computer, so it would just be using it from the internet. So just to clarify that, the way it'll work for you is you'll go to Screencast-O-Matic, you'll click on Start Recording, click on that version, Use Version 1.0, and it'll pop up this box just like this for you right here. It's using Java on your computer, and it's using the software completely from the website, Screencast-O-Matic, on the internet, so it won't download anything to your computer. So the first step in our recording is going to be setting the area that we are recording. So you'll see when it pops up here, it has these dotted black and white lines. So what these are the area that the screen capture is going to record. So this means that it's not going to capture anything outside the box. It's only going to capture what happens inside the box. So the way that we change the area here is with this drop-down menu. And it has some presets for us. So again, this is something that you'll find in any screen recording software that you use, the ability to change the area that you're recording. So this is actually a really important choice, what size your recording is going to be. So there's a couple of things to think about with this. And really the important thing to think about is if I'm going to go full screen, for instance, It's going to capture everything that happens on my screen. But how big is my screen compared to the screens that other students are using? So our finished video recording is going to have the exact same dimensions, in this case, as my computer screen's dimensions. So the video itself is going to be 1,400 pixels by 1,000 pixels, or whatever my screen resolution or size happens to be. So that means if a student who happens to be using a smaller computer tries to open up that video and he opens it up full screen, it's going to be blown up pretty big. Now, in our case today, we're going to be hosting our video on YouTube. The really nice thing about YouTube is that it is going to do a lot of that scaling of your video for you. So you don't have to worry about that as much. In our case, really here, we want to be thinking about what do we want to be showing the students? Do the students need to be seeing my entire screen if we want to be recording something in Desire to Learn? So for example, Desire to Learn here, it has an area on the sides of it here that you'll notice no matter what size your screen is, those areas are just white. So Desire to Learn kind of has a fixed size. Once you get it to this width, it doesn't really get any bigger than that. So if I'm just recording something in Desire to Learn, I don't really have to show this, I don't really have to record my entire screen. I could maybe shrink things down to a more manageable size here and just record that. Now, if I were recording something where I needed to show students my entire desktop because I needed to show them how to navigate through files and maybe open up different applications, that's a situation where I would have to show them my entire desktop because otherwise they wouldn't see everything that was happening here. If it were only recording a portion like this, and I wanted to show students what was happening on the whole screen, everything outside of the box here wouldn't be captured. So that would be kind of tough. So if you don't want to spend a whole lot of time thinking about it, if you kind of just want an answer to the question of what size should my recording be, if you're using Screencast-O-Matic, I would go with Medium HD. And that'll record in a resolution that's 1024 pixels wide by 576 pixels high. So as a quick note about these HD settings, small, medium, and full, those don't really mean anything. HD is a standard that is generally going to be either 720 pixels high or 1080 pixels high. So these small, medium, and full, these are some things that really Screencast-O-Matic just kind of made up. They kind of made up these names for their own sizes here. So you don't really take those names too seriously. Medium HD isn't really a thing. That's just the size that that's just what they decided to call the preset size of 1,075 pixels wide by 576 pixels high. Or excuse me, 1,024 pixels wide by 576 pixels high. So I just kind of like that size because it's kind of a nice balance. It's not going to record the entire screen, which is going to just kind of be a lot of information, and it's not going to be incredibly small like something like this, where we'll be really cramped in trying to show them whatever we want to show them. So I'm going to choose Medium HD here. The next step then is if I want to be showing them what's happening in my browser, I want to make sure that my browser is inside the area that I'm recording. So I'm just going to drag my browser over here and make sure that it fits inside this area. And I can just click and drag the corner of my browser so that it fits right inside that area that I've chosen. So whatever size you ultimately choose, you'll want to make sure to do this, to move your browser over so that they can see everything. Now you'll notice that for me, I didn't include the top of my browser. And the reason I didn't do that is because I'm not going to be using any of these. I'm not going to be, the students don't need to be seeing the tabs that I'm using, the URL, my bookmarks, or anything like that. They just need to see what's happening in D2L. So that's going to kind of eliminate any clutter. And we can use the space that we have most efficiently. So the next step in our process then is our audio. And I'm going to go ahead and just put my Outlook here. So the audio is actually a really important step in creating an effective and high quality screen capture. And you wouldn't necessarily think that the audio is that important because, you know, we're creating a screen capture, so how important is the audio? You know, screen capture is 90% video, right? Well, you'd be surprised really how much the quality of the audio affects your experience as somebody watching a video. And if you've ever watched a video, a tutorial or something where the audio quality isn't so great, where there's a lot of noise in the background, then you definitely know what I'm talking about. In those cases, it almost feels like it doesn't matter how great that tutorial is, how great the video looks. If it's hard to hear what the person's saying, if there's a lot of distracting background noise, then it really kind of takes away from the entire experience. So you want to make sure that your audio quality is as good as your video quality or better. So this section right here of our screen recorder is the audio section. If I click on this down menu, this is where I can choose the first step in setting up my audio, which is what is my audio source? So you'll notice that I have a few options here, and these options are just going to be specific to my computer. When you all go to Screencast-O-Matic and start your recording, you're going to notice that your options here are completely different from mine, because what this is doing is it's detecting all of the audio sources available in my personal computer here and giving me those options and asking me which one I want to choose. So I can either choose, for me, the built-in microphone on my computer, or I can choose a built-in input where I could plug in another computer. So I would definitely recommend using an external microphone to folks who are going to be creating screen capture videos. So there's a couple choices there. If you have a USB microphone that you can plug into your computer, that's a really great way to go. If you have, and if you use a USB microphone, in most cases, you'll see a USB microphone pop up here. Whatever the brand is, if you use like a Dynex or something like that, it'll probably say Dynex, but it'll almost always say USB next to that choice, and that's how you'll know which one to pick. Now you can also use something like a headset that you plug in to your mic jack or a microphone input on your computer. In those cases, you're usually going to be selecting input or microphone. But the nice thing that you can do here is if you click this other button with these little stepped up bar graph looking things, or actually audio meters, you can actually do a test. So this is definitely something that I would recommend, just to make sure that you have the correct input selected. So step one here is selecting your input, whether it's a plugged-in USB mic, whether it's a microphone that you've plugged into an input, or if you don't have those and you just want to use your built-in microphone, you're going to select that here. The next step is clicking on this audio meter button here and setting your audio levels. So what you're doing here is you're setting the volume at which your microphone or your computer is recording your voice. So ideally what you want to be doing is getting an audio meter reading that's going to land about 2/3 of the way up your computer. So for me, this is a little bit low, so I might turn it up a little bit here so that it's hitting kind of right about this area. Now if it goes way up to the top like it just did, that's a little too high. That's kind of scary, so I might want to just take it down a little bit until it lands kind of right in there. That looks about perfect. So what you're trying to avoid here is, one, you're trying to avoid the audio levels being too quiet, like down here at the very bottom, because what that does is that adds a whole lot of extra noise to your recording. You're also trying to avoid the audio going all the way to the top here. What's going to happen there is if that audio hits that top of that meter, it's going to distort or clip, and it's going to sound garbled or crunchy. So you want to try and avoid either of those scenarios there. You don't want it to be too low, and you don't want it to be too high. You just want it to be kind of right in the middle or about 2/3 of the way up. Now, they have a great feature here in Screencast-O-Matic, which is auto adjust volume. If you click on that and you just start talking, it'll automatically set it for you so that it's hitting right about that area that we want it to hit, which is a nice feature. So then the last step here, just like I mentioned, is to record a test. And the reason you want to do this is you just want to check and make sure that your settings are all correct before you start recording your actual screen capture. So now I'm playing it back, and I can hear this in my headphones here. And I'm hearing that it worked. I'm hearing that it sounds good, so I know that I'm all set up. So I can hit OK. So you definitely want to do a test there, because you do not want to start your screen recording and record a 15-minute screen capture, or something that you've worked really hard on. You get it all finished, and then you start to play it back and you realize, I didn't have the right microphone selected, or my volume was way too high and it sounds completely distorted, or it was too low and it's really noisy and I can't hear myself. It's such a bummer. And setting your levels is incredibly important in testing them. Also, that's a lot of folks who have come to me and have had problems with this kind of thing. A lot of times it comes down to selecting the right source. In those cases, they may have even bought a USB microphone, and they'll say, I bought this USB microphone and I plugged it in and recorded with it. It doesn't sound any better than it used to with my built-in microphone. And in those cases, it's usually because they didn't have that USB microphone selected. So selecting the source, setting the audio level, and testing are really important steps in the process. The last button here is a webcam button. There's kind of mixed opinions about whether to record using a webcam, and what this will do is it's still going to record your screen capture, but it's also going to record video from your webcam. Most of the time I tell folks, don't really worry about the webcam too much. And if you do decide that you want to use a webcam, a lot of cases it can be nice just to kind of use it for something like an introductory video so that students can see your face and learn who you are. But in subsequent videos, if you're showing them how to do things in D2L, if you're doing lecture content or whatever it is, you don't necessarily need to use that webcam recording every time, and I wouldn't even necessarily recommend it. Because if the main bulk of your content is showing them something on your computer screen or in software in D2L, that's really the focus. And if you have the face here somewhere, it can actually be kind of distracting. So it really just depends on what the purpose of your video is. If the purpose is for them to see your face and you want to introduce yourself, definitely go for it. If the purpose is really more the content that you're showing them, just let them hear your voice and see what's going on the screen, and that should work well. Before I start recording, the X button that's here that we didn't touch on, that will, of course, close out this recorder if we don't want to use it. And then the last one here is our recording button. So in this example, let's say I just wanted to give students a quick overview of the setup of our D2L course here. I'm going to go ahead and hit record. It's going to count down for me. And now it's recording. Now I can see my timer down here. Now you'll notice that there is a limit on the amount of time I can record. This is the limitation that you're going to see in Screencast-O-Matic versus some other tools that you may need to pay for, like Camtasia Studio. Camtasia Studio is something that you have to buy. Of course, you can record for as long as you want to, assuming that you have space on your hard drive. Because this is a free tool, it's a web-based tool, you don't have to pay anything for it. This is one of the limitations that they've kind of put in there. There is an option to pay for a pro version of Screencast-O-Matic, where your limit is higher than 15 minutes. But the thing I would say about this is that when we're thinking about the length of our videos and breaking them up and taking into account things like students' attention spans and really the best way to break content up and deliver it to them, I wouldn't say that there's a whole lot of cases that you would necessarily want to be recording a video that's longer than 15 minutes anyway. Because if you're going for 15 minutes without a break, it might be tough for students to sit down and watch something that long. So this actually might be kind of a good thing because it would force you to break your content up. And actually a lot of videos that I create that are tutorial videos, I'm trying to shoot for something under 10 minutes, and in some cases even shorter, maybe 5 minutes or less, depending on what I'm trying to show them. Richard Thomas asked a good question here that I just wanted to stop and address. He asked if he can remove, stop, or delete the video following introductory remarks and continue with the presentation. That's a really good question. And unfortunately, you can't do that in Screencast-O-Matic. You'll notice that once we start recording, those controls are gone, so there's no way for us to turn off that recording or turn off the webcam in the middle of our recording. If you're using something like Camtasia Studio, which I'd be interested actually to know if any folks are interested in having a separate presentation on that particular piece of software at some point, because we have gotten some feedback about that. If you're using something like Camtasia Studio, it'll have some editing tools that will actually let you edit specifically that webcam track, which means that you could do exactly what you said, remove the webcam image from the recording after a certain point, after you've just kind of introduced yourself. And that's really actually a great technique if you have a tool that lets you do that. So a good question. For our purposes here, with looking at this particular piece of software, my recommendation for that would be kind of do what we talked about before and just do a separate short video where you can see your face that introduces yourself, and then maybe in subsequent videos or separate videos where you're showing them the content, don't use the webcam. So since we've been recording here, it's been capturing everything that I'm doing. I can show students our homepage here. I can take them to content, give them a quick overview of the structure of the course. I can show them where they're going to find their assignment lists for courses. I can show them how to get to discussions, show them how to get to their grades. And as soon as I'm done with my little tutorial here, I'll finish up and I can click the Done button. Now the Restart button here is actually kind of nice. If I've started and I'm a minute in or something and I realize that I made a mistake, or realized I'm showing them something in a different course, or there's something I need to fix in the course, I can hit this Restart button and it'll just start the recording over. It'll scrap what I have so far. And that's just a nice way to quickly start over at the beginning if you make a mistake and you know you need to start over. Otherwise, I can click Done here, and I'm going to see this screen. Now, it has a couple of choices. I can publish it to Screencast-O-Matic, I can publish it to YouTube, or I can publish to a video file. Publish to a video file is the one that's actually going to let me save it on my computer. And that's what I would always recommend. That way you just know you have a copy of it saved on your computer, you have a backup of it, so no matter what happens to it, wherever you send it later, you have a copy of it that you can save wherever you know is safe. Now you can also, down here we can see we can preview our video. So I can hit play and it's going to start playing it. I can hear my audio. You all can't hear it because I have my headset connected here, but I can hear my audio. I like the way it sounds. I like the way it looks. I can skip ahead and see what it looks like when I move around. And you can see it highlights my cursor there, which is really nice. It just shows students where, or shows your viewer, whoever your audience is, where your icon is, where your cursor is. So this is a great way to just preview the video before I say, yeah, that's it, that's my masterpiece, I'm ready to save it and share it with the world. But when you are ready to save it and share it with the world, you're going to click that Publish to Video file. If you hated your recording, if you thought it was terrible, you definitely have to go back and do it again. You can click Done with this recording and it will delete it. You'll get a little pop-up message that says, hey, are you sure you want to get rid of that whole thing? And you'll say, yes, I'm sure I want to get rid of that whole thing. But if you want to keep it, you love it, you're good to go, you'll hit Publish. And it's going to take you to this screen where you have some options for saving your video file. Now, the first one here is video type. This is another area where we could spend a lot of time talking about different file types. but what I would say is my recommendation would be to always save it as an MP4, just because whether you're working on a Windows computer or a Mac, it's going to work on both of those. If you save it as an AVI, you may have trouble playing it on a Mac if you want to do that later. If you save it as a flash, it's going to be, for one thing, in a format that's kind of on its way out. So I would save it as a QuickTime MP4. As far as size, this is another area we could spend a whole lot of time talking, but I would always say just save it as full size, because what these other options are going to do, HD size or rescaling, is it's going to either blow up or shrink your recorded video. But we don't need to do that, because first of all, we never want to blow up our video larger than we recorded it, because it's not going to change the number of pixels in there. It's just going to blow up those pixels. So what it'll do if we do this is actually degrade the quality of our video. And if we rescale it to make it smaller, it's not going to degrade the quality, but it's obviously going to be a smaller video. The reason we don't need to do that is because we're going to be sharing our video here, I'm going to show you next, in YouTube. And YouTube is great because, as I mentioned before, it does some of the scaling stuff for us by putting it in a player that lets students go to full screen or view it a little bit smaller. So we just want to save our video, to keep it short, we just want to save our video in the exact same dimensions that we recorded it. We don't want to do anything to change the size. So we can skip these other options here. Captions is actually not a place where we can caption a video here. It's where you can add a caption file if you already have your caption file created. So we're going to skip all that, and we're just going to click Save Video. Now it's going to ask us where we want to save it. So I'll save mine. What I would recommend here is, if you're working on a video project, I always recommend creating a new folder for whatever project you're working on, just so you have a consistent place where you can keep all the media for that project. We're going to save it in test folder here on my desktop. We're going to hit test, and now it's saving it for us. So it'll take a minute to package things up and save it. And while we're waiting on that, let's just pause for a moment here, because we just covered a whole lot of stuff. So let's pause and let's take a few questions before we move on to the captioning and the sharing part of our presentation here. We do have a question from Laura. She said, I made a video recently and put it on YouTube. YouTube combined it with a bunch of other similar videos. Is there a way to keep YouTube from combining your video? I guess I'm not too sure what you mean there, Laura. Did it actually make a video that when you press play, it showed other videos? Or you could be referring to, let me know if this is right, do you mean that it showed you some recommended videos, like at the end of your video, that it thought maybe were similar and were sending your viewers off to other places? And while I'm waiting for that clarification from Laura, Richard asked if the presenter can annotate. There's not an annotation feature in Screencast-O-Matic here. If you get another tool, something like Camtasia Studio, as I mentioned, there are a lot more tools for adding things in there, like callouts is what they call them in Camtasia, which lets you put arrows and animations that kind of pop up to highlight different portions of the screen. We're actually going to look at a little bit, a few different tools in YouTube coming up here. And there is a feature for putting some types of annotations into YouTube, which I haven't really used too much, but I will show those to you. Okay, so yeah, Laura mentioned, what Laura meant there is at the end of the video on YouTube, it recommends some other videos for you that it thinks are similar. I might wait on that. Well, I don't know if there's a way to turn that off, Laura. What I'm going to show you guys is how to host it in YouTube, but embed it in your D2L course, so students don't actually have to go to YouTube to view it. And in that case, it won't show you the recommended videos. But that's a really good question. If you're showing something in YouTube and you're actually sending people to the YouTube page, I don't really know how to turn that off. Richard asked, can the presenter add a title slide or a credit slide? Again, not in Screencast-O-Matic. This is a really kind of a slimmed down application. There's not a whole lot of features for that. That is something that you can do in something like Camtasia Studio. But unfortunately, for one like this, just because it's free, it doesn't have a whole lot of those features. For Camtasia Studio, you can get that with an educator's discount, which does reduce the price pretty significantly, I think maybe like in half. So if you're really interested in creating some kind of high quality videos with slides and some effects and things like that, looking at one of those tools like Camtasia that you have to pay for is kind of the way to go to get access to some of those features. Roger asked, if you have several apps inside the capture window and change focus during the recording, does it hurt anything? Thinking about captioning with a PowerPoint show under the demonstration. I don't think so necessarily. I guess the question here is really about pacing. And I don't think it does. I mean, you could use this webinar as an example. I'm moving between a few different applications and I'm recording it and I'm going to put it on the archive. So this is really essentially like a screen capture. And I think that it seems to me like we're able to kind of move between different pieces of software. As long as you make it clear, you know, when you're moving between those pieces of software, now I'm going to a new piece of software and this is how I get there. Now I'm going to a new website and this is how I get there. As long as you make that transition clear, I think that it's okay. I hope that answers your question, Roger, but let me know if it doesn't. So I'm gonna move on for now. Definitely gonna save time for questions at the end. So any that I didn't get to here yet, I will get to at the end. But for now, I'm just gonna move on for time's sake. We have finished creating our video. We have it saved here as an MP4. So now I can close that Screencast-O-Matic window. So now our next step here is hosting, or excuse me, rather editing, captioning, hosting, and sharing our video. So we've only finished that first step in the process, but that is definitely the most important time-intensive one there. So we're going to go to YouTube next. And YouTube is a really great resource for free editing, captioning, and hosting tools for videos. So you do have to have an account to do this with YouTube, but if you have a Google account, you can use that Google account, or you can create a new Google account if you don't have one. YouTube is, if you don't know, a part of Google, so you actually create a Google account to use YouTube. And once you have that account created, when you go to YouTube, you're going to come to a home page here that just has suggested videos, music videos. And the way that you'll get to kind of your video creation place is by clicking on your user icon in the top right corner and selecting Creator Studio. Now, as a warning, they change this interface very often. This has probably changed 10 times in the last 3 or 4 years, I want to say. It didn't used to be called Creator Studio. It used to be called something different. So for now, it's called Creator Studio. And it will take you to this page here where you can see, you know, your page views, you can see all your videos. And where you want to go from here is to your video manager. This is kind of your home base for working with videos that you upload, editing them, and getting them ready to share them. So the first step is, of course, uploading the video that we finished. So we can do that by clicking this upload button in the top right corner. It's going to take us to this screen here where we can either just drag and drop a file or we can select a file. I'll click on it here. I'll go to my folder on my desktop where I saved my video, and I'll click test and I'll open it up. So now it's uploading. Now here I can do a couple things. I'm going to name it and give a description if I want to do that. And I'm going to change my privacy settings. This is a pretty important thing. If you choose public, your video is going to be publicly available on YouTube. Anybody can watch it. If you choose private, nobody else but you is going to be able to see it on YouTube. But if you choose unlisted, it's kind of the magic in-between setting. What this means is that people can't find your video just by searching for things on YouTube. They won't see it just by browsing videos. But you can still share it with other people by posting a link somewhere or embedding that video. So this is a great setting if you just want to be, like I'm going to be doing here, kind of using YouTube as my host, but I don't want people to be actually going to YouTube to find my video. I just want them to see it where I'm going to embed it in D2L. So once the video is done uploading, it still needs to process. As you can see here, the video has been queued. It's going to take a little while to process, which is okay. That just sort of depends on the load that YouTube has at this time, how busy their servers are. So we'll go ahead and just click Done for now. And I'm going to go back to I can go back to my video manager by clicking this button, or just to keep things consistent like I showed you, we can always click on this user icon right up here and click Creator Studio, and then go back to my video manager. Now here's a video that I uploaded. So it's processing. It's still going to take a little while for it to finish. So I actually have another video down here that I've created that we can use instead. Because that'll take a little while, let's just go ahead and pretend like this test recording is the one that I just uploaded with Screencast-O-Matic. So next to all of your videos here, you'll see a drop-down arrow. You can click on that drop-down arrow and it's going to give you a bunch of different options. Info and settings, enhancement, audio, annotations, just like we had a question about earlier, subtitles. Awesome. And you can also download your video. If anything ever happens and you lost that original one, you can download it. So this is a lot of stuff that you can do here in YouTube, and I encourage you to explore a lot of that on your own time, because YouTube's editing and video features have expanded like crazy in the last few years. But what we're going to look at are just a couple of basic ones. If we go to info and settings here, these are the same options that we saw when we uploaded it. So if you need to change your privacy, if you didn't get it right when you first uploaded it, you can change it here. The next one, you'll see these same options that we had in that drop-down menu. Once we click on one of them, they're now at the top, so we can use these to kind of navigate between them. The second one we're going to look at real quickly is enhancements. And what I want to show you here is the trim feature, which is great. This kind of takes care of the editing portion of our process, where we kind of polish and clean things up. And the one thing I would show you here is a lot of times when you start your recording, when you end your recording, you might end up with a little bit of kind of some junk at the beginning and some junk at the end, where maybe you're rustling, you're clicking a couple of buttons to get it started. And a nice thing to do can be to trim out the very beginning and the very end where that's happening. If you click the trim button here, it starts playing it, so I'm just going to pause it, but you'll see that it brings up a little timeline. And it has these big blue bars on the left and the right, where you can actually click and drag and trim out the very beginning or a very ending portion of your video. So you can kind of move back to a place where you know you've gotten rid of those parts that you don't want. When I click play again after I've moved these bars, it's going to start playing it from the new place that I've chosen here. We can see what it's cutting out at the beginning, and we can see what I've cut out at the end. And so when I click play or move my cursor back here, I can see where it's gonna start it now that I've made my change. I can just test it and make sure, yeah, that's right, or that was too far. I'm gonna move it back a little bit. But once you've got it, those trim points set correctly, you'll hit done. That will confirm your changes and save the video with those trimmed changes. So make sure before you hit done there, you've got it right. Now, one other quick thing I'll show you with trim, you can actually cut out a portion in the middle too, aside from just dragging and cutting out the beginning and end like that. You can actually cut out a middle portion. So let's say I took a break here, or I made a mistake in the middle. what I can do is find the place with my playhead where I made the mistake, hit the split button, which will split my timeline right here. I'll find the place where I made, where the end of my mistake was, and where I kind of maybe started over. I'll hit split. Again, now it's divided my timeline up into the portion before that place I cut out, the place I cut out, and the place after the place I cut out. So then, now that I've isolated this area that maybe I want to get rid of for any reason, I can hit the delete button, and now it clears out that portion in the beginning, and when I play it, it'll skip straight from here to here. I'll hit done, confirm those changes. Now, one really, really nice thing is you'll notice if I hit trim again after I've cut that out, is it actually lets me come back and erase any of those trims that I made. So if I want to bring back that portion that I just cut out, I can just click and drag this bar from the portion on the right here, and now I've brought back that section in the middle that I cut out. Same thing here, if I want to bring back the portion at the very beginning that I cut out, or the portion at the very end, I can undo my changes here, which is a really great feature. So you don't have to worry if you made a mistake, you can come back in and fix it, which is awesome. So I'm going to keep moving here just for time's sake. That's how you use the trim feature in YouTube to take care of really basic editing, but it's awesome that they have that feature because that's not something you used to be able to do. The last thing that we'll look at here is probably what many of you have come for here today, the subtitles function. So I'm clicking on subtitles here, and it's going to take me to this new page where I can edit the subtitles of my video. Now, one really cool feature about YouTube is that it does do automatic captioning of your videos, but there's a huge caveat there because the accuracy of the automatic captioning is not very good. So unfortunately, it's not this magic bullet that will automatically caption your videos for you and everything is perfect. It would be great if it were, and I'm sure their technology is always getting better as far as voice recognition, but it's never 100% correct. So when we get to this screen, we're going to see this caption track listed right here. So all the caption tracks we have for the video are listed on the right here. And the one that we'll see when we first come is English Automatic. And you'll know that that's the automatic voice to text caption track that YouTube has created for us because it'll say automatic right there. So since it's not 100% correct, what we have to do is we have to edit it and correct those mistakes that it made, which we can do by clicking on that track. Now it's going to bring us to this page, and this is where we can edit our captions. So here on the right, we can see all of our captions and the times at which they begin and end listed here, and we can see their text. And underneath our video, we can see kind of a timeline here, and when we click on a caption, it'll take us to that next caption and the place that it happens in the video. So if I started to play my video, I can see it playing here, and it's showing me the captions. I can hear it in my headphones, and I'm hearing my voice along with the captions. So to change these, to make any corrections, all I have to do is click on one of the captions where I can see that there's a mistake. So I want to change I'll to it will, because that's what I said. So I'm just going to click on it here. Or I'm sorry, first I'm going to hit edit. Now I can just click on it and just use my keyboard and make the changes. Here I didn't say timer down, I said timer down. This timer down here that shows us. So now that caption is correct. So now I can click on the next one, make any changes. One nice thing that YouTube does to kind of help speed along the process is you'll see this option down here that says pause video while typing. So what that means is I can start playing my video. And as soon as I hear a mistake and start typing, it'll automatically stop it for me. And that does a nice thing by just eliminating you having to move your mouse over and start and stop it. All you have to do is just start typing, and it'll pause the video for you while you're typing because it knows that you're fixing something, and then it'll pick up again once you stop typing. So that's kind of a nice feature that they have just to help speed things along. And you can also hit, when you're in a caption, you can also hit the return button to start the video playing at that point. So those are two nice features. So here it stops when I start typing. It'll pick up again when I stop typing. And I can hit the enter button to bring it back to that caption that I'm on. So that's how you use YouTube to edit your captions. And if you've seen this before, you'll notice that it's definitely improved a little bit. For instance, it didn't used to have this timeline down here where you could see your captions, and it didn't have the pause while typing feature, which stops it for you while you start typing, which means that before you used to have to do a lot of starting and stopping. So it's definitely got some nicer features than it used to have. The other thing that you may need to change about your captions, aside from the actual words in them, is you may need to change the length of time or the timing of the captions. You can do that by clicking on the timeline down here, and you'll notice some familiar blue bars at the beginning and end of your captions. And if the timing was off for any reason, once you edit some of the words in those captions, you can just use these blue bars to click and drag and edit the timing of those captions. So maybe you want that one to start a little later or start a little earlier. You can adjust that there. Now, once you're finished with your changes here, what you want to do is you want to click the Publish Edits button. Now, when you do that, it's going to take you back to the screen, and you're going to notice that it's going to have two tracks now. You still have the automatic one, which is the original speech-to-text unchanged one, and you now have a second new one. This is the one that you've edited. So one thing that you may want to do is go into this new one that you've edited and click Rename here under Actions and say Edited Captions and click Rename. Now it says Edited Captions, and I know that that's the one that I edited. So when I go in here again, that's under Actions here. That's where I find Rename. Now, one last thing that you'll want to do is unpublish the automatic speech-to-text captions. Because if you don't do that, those will still show up as a captioning option on your finished video. And when people click on the closed captioning button, they'll be able to watch those uncorrected ones which are wrong. So you want to make sure that you unpublish those, which you can do by clicking on those captions, clicking on Actions, selecting Unpublish. And now you just want to hit the back button to go back. You don't want to hit Publish here because then that will republish them. So we'll just hit the back button to go back to our other screen here. Now we can see just my edited captions is published and the English automatic ones are unpublished. So now we just have our finished captions in YouTube here. So now we are on the last step in our process, which is sharing our video. So we've uploaded it to YouTube, we've done our editing to it, we've captioned our video, and now we want to share it. I just want to mention quickly, I did mention some of the other features in YouTube, and I just wanted to show you where those are. We don't really have time to go into them, but I mentioned that you do have the ability to create some annotations. You do that in the annotations window here. And I haven't really worked with them too often, so I don't know how they work. but this is where you would find that in YouTube. So to share our video, we're going to go back to the video manager here. We're going to go to our videos. You can see that my original one I uploaded is still processing there, so it's still not quite finished. So it does take a little while sometimes. I'm going to go to my test recording video that we're working on here, and I'm just going to click on that video. Now it takes me to the page here where I would view it on if I were viewing on YouTube. And if I scroll down underneath the video, I can go to this share button here. When I click on that, it opens up this little window right here where I have a couple of options. One of them is embed. Now if I click on that, it gives me this code here that's highlighted. So I just want to copy this code exactly as it is, which I can do by right-clicking and selecting copy, or I can do Command-C or Control-C, whatever I'm used to for copying. And now that's copied into my clipboard. So now I want to take it into my D2L course and paste that embed code into my D2L course. So I'm going to go to my D2L course here in this tab, go to my course homepage, and again in our example here, we're creating a news item. So I'm going to create a new news item, and I'm going to call this a course tour, because that's kind of what our example was. Now here, what I want to do in the text box where I normally type in my news item, I want to go down and click on this HTML source editor. If I click on that, now I can just paste that HTML code into there and click save, and now my video will pop up right here. It tells me that my plugin needs to be activated, which is okay. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to publish this news item, and we're in the news tool here. I'm just going to go back to the course home so we can see what it looks like on the home page. I'm going to activate my Flash. This is just a little quirk specific to my browser here. But this is what your finished embedded video is going to look like now. Now if I click play, it'll actually play it right in the news item. I don't have to go anywhere else. And I can even use the functions here on YouTube's player, including closed captions. If I click on those, it'll activate them, and now when I click play, I'm seeing those captions show up at the bottom of the screen. And I can turn them off by clicking on the button. I can also click full screen, and I can watch it in full screen. So it's really great. You get all of YouTube's player features right in the news item, and you don't have to send them to a new link. And as you'll notice here, when it's finished, it also is not going to present those recommended videos like it would on the YouTube page. Over here, for example, it's got some up next recommended videos on the YouTube page, which is what Laura was asking about earlier. So, yeah, when we do it this way and embed it right here, we don't have to send them to YouTube. It won't ask them to go anywhere else when we're done. So that kind of concludes our whole process here. And I'm just going to go back here and recap really quick what we did. We captured our video and audio using Screencast-O-Matic, which is that free web-based tool. Again, I used an app from theirs that I had installed on my computer, but just as a reminder, you don't have to do that. When you go to the website and click on Start Recording, go to that version 1.0 recorder, it'll use your Java, which is connected to your browser, and it'll just do it from the website. We uploaded our video to YouTube where we edited it, we did some trimming, we added our captions, and we hosted it there by leaving it up there on YouTube. And finally, we shared our finished video by embedding that code into our D2L news post. And that way our students can see it and use the YouTube player, and they are all set. So now we are at the last portion, which is question time. So I think I have one question up here that I may not have answered, which is from Laura. She said that she put her video on Facebook and then had to put the video in QuickTime in order to avoid the recommended videos. Yeah, so I guess, so what you were doing there, yeah, you were hosting the video on Facebook instead of YouTube. So you don't have to host your videos on YouTube. You can host them in other places for sure. The reason that YouTube is great is because it has those editing features and the captioning features that we were just looking at. So that's why I would definitely recommend using YouTube. But you certainly can use other ones. And Laura mentioned too that, as we saw, that embedding feature eliminates a lot of that problem of sending students to other places. So anyone else have any other questions about what we talked about today, about the tools that we looked at, the capabilities of the tools, techniques that are good for when you're creating your screen captures? Any questions about other tools or pieces of software that you've heard of that you might be interested in or want to know about? I may not have used them, but if I have, I might be able to answer your questions. So we had one question here to just look at one more time where the HTML code is in the news item. If we create a new news item, or if we were editing a news item and we were seeing what we had here, we go down here and click on these little brackets with a /. This is our HTML source code editor. We click on that, and that's how we get into our window here where we paste that code. Anybody else? Any questions? Yes, and if you think of a question later that you wish you would have asked, you are more than welcome to email me that question later. Let's see, so we had a question, sorry, I missed this one earlier, Elena. Are we still required to notify participants if Flash will be used? Yes, that notification process generally happens in the course design process. If there's a course materials page, it should tell students if there's Flash that they're required to download to view any of the content in the course. But if you are creating news items like these, and there aren't anything else, there aren't any other Flash items in the course that would have prompted the designers to put that Flash warning in the course materials page, then you might have to do that. So yeah, that's a great question. I would probably go ahead and just let students know if you have any problems viewing the videos, then try updating your Flash, and that should help. But if your course materials page already has that, you can just check there and see if it says something about students downloading Flash. And if it does have that, then you don't need to worry about posting that news item. Any other questions? If you don't have any other questions and you need to take off, you are welcome to leave. I'll probably just hang out here for the next 5 or 10 minutes and answer any questions as they come in. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for taking the time to come and learn a little bit about this today. I hope that this has made this process seem easier for you all and maybe made it seem accessible to you all, not accessible in the universal design sense, but accessible in the sense that you didn't feel like you could do it before. Hopefully maybe you feel like you can do it now with the tools that you have available to you. And also, if any of you are interested in a Camtasia specific webinar, if any of you are interested in purchasing it, or if you've already purchased it and you want to learn more about it, definitely let me know. Send me an email, or you can send an email to training. Liz Dabik is our professional development coordinator, and she's out on leave right now. So training@ccconline.org is the place where you can send emails to training division in general. But let us know if that's something that you want to hear about or see. Let us know about any other ideas that you have for webinars about specific tools or software, and if we have the know-how, we will definitely bring those to you. Cool. Kristen said she would email some questions about Camtasia, but she's actually driving at the moment, which is pretty cool because I know that WebEx added the capability to view webinars from your mobile phone, but I didn't know how well that works. So that's actually really cool to hear that some folks are able to use that pretty well.